The first time I lost the class president election, I was not even on the ballot. That was the part nobody understood afterward. When the posters came down, the votes were counted, and my best friend stood on the auditorium stage wearing the blazer I had lint-rolled for her that morning. Her name was Amelia Hart, and the whole school called her Emmy, because Amelia sounded too formal for someone who hugged teachers, remembered birthdays, and cried during charity videos. I had called her Emmy since year 7, back when we shared a broken locker and ate lunch on the music room steps because neither of us knew where to sit. By year 12, she was the face of our friendship, bright and warm and impossible not to love, while I was the girl behind her with the clipboard, the campaign notes, the speech drafts, the vote maps, the slogan ideas, the apology texts, and the emergency safety pins. I wrote her presidential platform. I designed her debate answers. I spent 3 weeks building the campaign that made everyone believe she was the only person kind enough, brave enough, and organized enough to lead the senior class through finals, graduation, and formal. Then, on voting day, she read my private journal entry to the whole grade and told them I had only helped her campaign because I wanted to control her from the shadows. It happened during the final candidate forum, 15 minutes before voting opened. The auditorium was packed, restless, smelling of deodorant, coffee, and rain-damp uniforms. Emmy stood at the center microphone beside the other candidates, golden hair curled, hands trembling just enough to make her look human. I sat in the front row with her cue cards in my lap, heart pounding with the nervous pride of a girl watching her work become someone else's applause. The moderator asked a question about leadership under pressure. In rehearsal, I had written Emmy a beautiful answer about listening before deciding, sharing credit, and building a culture where quiet students felt seen. She looked at me before answering. I smiled. I thought she was scared. I thought she needed encouragement. Then she said, "Before I answer, I need to be honest about something painful." The auditorium shifted. Teachers leaned forward. Cameras lifted. Emmy's eyes filled. She pulled a folded page from her blazer pocket. My page. My handwriting. A journal entry from 2 months earlier where I had written, after one of our fights, "I am tired of making Emmy shine while everyone acts like the light belongs to her. Sometimes I think I'd be a better president because at least I know how things actually work." She read it aloud. Every word. She did not mention the next line where I had written, "I hate myself for thinking that because she is my best friend and I love her." She did not mention I had written it after she missed a campaign planning meeting to go shopping with girls who used to mock us. She did not mention that my journal had been inside my bedroom drawer, under a stack of old notebooks, in a house where she had slept over 100 times. Emmy read only the ugly part, the tired part, the jealous part, and then she lowered the page with tears sliding down her cheeks. "I never wanted to expose Sophia," she whispered, and somehow saying my name made it worse. "But leadership has to be honest, and I cannot let someone who secretly resents this whole school control the election from behind me." The whole auditorium turned toward me. I remember the weight of their eyes more than the sound. Accusation is heavy before anyone speaks. In my first life, I stood up too fast. The cue cards fell from my lap, like white birds shot out of the air. I said, "That's private," which was true and therefore useless. I said, "You stole that," which sounded ridiculous because Emmy was already crying like I had stabbed her with the page myself. I said, "I wrote your whole campaign." And that was the line that ruined me. The room did not hear betrayal. It heard confession. The jealous strategist admitting she had been pulling strings. Emmy gasped as if I had struck her. The teachers rushed in with soft voices and hard decisions. By the time voting opened, the story was set. Sophia Reyes, bitter campaign manager, tried to puppeteer her best friend, then lashed out when Emmy chose integrity. Emmy won class president with the highest turnout in school history. They called it a landslide. I called it a burial. The weeks after that were not loud. They were worse. People stopped asking me to help with things, then whispered that I was angry when I stopped showing up. Teachers who once praised my organization began watching my tone. Students joked about shadow presidents whenever I entered a room. Emmy gave interviews for the school newsletter about surviving friendship betrayal with grace. She thanked everyone who stood by her during a deeply painful time. She never said my full name again in public. That hurt more than hatred. Hatred would have admitted I mattered. Erasure made me look like a bad habit she had overcome. I tried to prove what I had done for her campaign, but every shared document had been transferred to her account. Every planning sheet had been rewritten in her handwriting for presentation. Every group message showed me offering strategy and her thanking me sweetly, which only supported her story that I wanted control. The journal page remained the centerpiece because people trust handwriting when it confirms what they want to believe. By graduation, Emmy was everywhere. President, formal committee chair, student speaker, service award nominee. Her campaign slogan, the one I invented at midnight while she slept on my bedroom floor, was printed on the senior mural. Lead with heart, listen with courage. People wrote it in yearbooks like scripture. I stopped attending assemblies. I stopped eating in the cafeteria. I stopped writing in journals. My mother tried to help, but how do you explain that someone did not just betray you? She used everything you loved about the friendship as evidence that you were dangerous? The sleepovers where she knew my bedroom drawers. The whispered complaints I trusted her with. The ambition I admitted only because I thought best friends could hold your worst thoughts without weaponizing them. When my university leadership scholarship asked for a school reference, my year advisor wrote that I was highly capable but had experienced interpersonal conflict in leadership settings. That phrase killed my application more cleanly than any rejection letter could. The night I died, the school had just posted Emmy's graduation speech online. I watched 3 minutes of it before throwing my phone across the room. She stood at the podium under warm lights and said, "Leadership is not about being the loudest voice. It is about choosing integrity when it costs you." The comments were full of hearts. So proud. Beautiful words. Future Prime Minister. I walked outside because the walls of my room felt too close. It was raining, hard enough that streetlights blurred. I ended up at the pedestrian crossing near school, the one outside the auditorium car park. I remember seeing the senior mural through the fence, the slogan glowing under the security light. My slogan. Her presidency. My ruin. A car turned too fast on the wet road. I heard the horn, saw a white light, and for one stupid second I thought Emmy would hear about it and cry beautifully at my memorial. Then the world went dark. When I opened my eyes again, Emmy was asleep on my bedroom floor with one hand tucked under her cheek and a campaign nomination form between us. My desk lamp was still on. Rain tapped softly against my window. The air smelled like vanilla lip balm and the instant noodles we had eaten at midnight. For a moment, my mind refused to understand. Then my gaze landed on the calendar above my desk. Monday, week 6. 3 weeks before voting day. The night before nominations closed. My lungs seized. I looked down at the nomination form. Class President Candidate Registration. Candidate name, Amelia Hart. Campaign Manager, Sophia Reyes. My handwriting had already filled in half the strategy notes on the back. Slogan ideas, priority issues, teacher endorsements, likely voting blocks, debate angles. My body remembered headlights. My ears remembered applause turning into judgment. Emmy shifted in her sleep and murmured, "Soph, don't forget the speech hook." Even unconscious, she was asking me to build the stage she would later use to burn me. I did not wake her. I slid the nomination form out from under her hand, slowly, carefully, like removing a blade from a sleeping animal. Then I opened my desk drawer. The journal was there, the blue one with the cracked spine, tucked beneath old maths notes exactly where it had been in my first life. My hands shook as I pulled it out. I turned to the page she would one day read aloud. It was blank. Not because I had not written it yet, because that fight had not happened yet. The ugly sentence existed only in my memory. I stared at the blank page until my vision blurred. Death had given me something better than evidence. It had given me an unwritten weapon. Emmy could not steal a page I never wrote. She could not read a confession I refused to create. But if I only hid the journal and kept helping her, she would find another page, another private thought, another version of me to destroy. The problem had never been the paper. It had been the friendship where my inner life was treated as campaign material. So, at 2:17 a.m., while my best friend slept on my floor, I wrote my own name on a second nomination form. Candidate name, Sofia Reyes. Campaign manager, Sofia Reyes.
Eslogan, nos a dos.
Real leadership. My hand paused after that. It sounded too direct. Too much like a message to her. Then again it was. In my first life, I had made Emmy look like a leader because I believed I was not the kind of girl people voted for. I was too serious, too blunt, too behind the scenes, too careful. Emmy was sunshine. I was wiring. Schools clap for sunshine and forget wiring until the lights go out. This time, I would not hide in the electrical system. If the school wanted to choose between us, they could do it while looking at both of us clearly. At 6:40 a.m., Emmy woke to find me already dressed, my hair tied back, 2 sealed nomination forms on my desk, and the blue journal missing from its drawer. She blinked up at me, sleepy and soft, and for one painful second I saw the girl from year 7 again, the one who shared her lunch, cried when my parents separated, and once punched a boy in the shoulder for mocking my old shoes. Love does not evaporate just because someone will one day betray you. That is what makes betrayal so cruel. It arrives wearing a face your heart still recognizes. You're up early, she mumbled. Nominations close today, I said. She sat up, smiling. My campaign manager is intense. I'm not your campaign manager. The smile stayed for half a second too long. What? I'm running too. I expected shouting. Emmy did not shout.
Emmy was better than that.
She laughed. Not meanly, not at first. A small confused laugh, like I had made a joke too early in the morning. You're what? Running for class president. I handed her form back. You should still submit yours. She stared at the paper, then at me. Sophia, we planned this together. I planned a lot of it. The words landed sharper than I intended. Her eyes widened, hurt blooming on command or maybe for real.
Wow.
1 syllable. So much accusation inside it. I thought we were a team. In my first life, that sentence would have ended the discussion. Team meant loyalty. Team meant swallow your ambition so your friend could shine. Team meant be useful and call it love. This time I said, we can be friends and both run. Emmy looked at me like I'd spoken a language designed to insult her. Against each other? Beside each other, I said. The voters decide. Her face changed then, not dramatically but enough. The softness drained from her eyes, replaced by something careful and cold. I didn't know you wanted this. You never asked. That was the first morning my best friend became my opponent. She did it beautifully. At school, she submitted her nomination with a trembling smile and told the elections advisor, Miss Kerr, that she was excited for a positive campaign rooted in friendship and respect. I submitted mine 5 minutes later. The office aide blinked when she saw both names. By recess, the whole grade knew Emmy Hart and Sofia Reyes were running against each other. By lunch, people had chosen storylines. Some loved it. Best friends competing.
¿Qué?
Some found it awkward. Some assumed I had betrayed her because Emmy had always been the leadership one. That phrase followed me through the corridor like perfume from someone else's dress. Emmy did not attack me. She did worse. She looked sad in public. When people asked if she was okay, she smiled bravely and said, I just hope this doesn't change us. Translation: Sophia changed us. I am trying to be graceful. I changed my own campaign immediately because anything I had planned for Emmy belonged to the old death. No stolen slogan, no recycled speech, no borrowed warmth. My platform became practical and unglamorous. Transparent formal budgeting, anonymous teacher feedback summaries, study space access during exam blocks, better communication between student council and students who were not already popular enough to hear news early. Reena Patel from Economics became my first volunteer after I helped her fix a timetable clash. Your slogan is a little intense, she said, reading my poster draft.
Nos a dos.
Real leadership. Sounds like you're challenging a vampire. Maybe I am. She studied me for a moment, then grinned. Excellent. I hate glitter politics. Reena was blunt, spreadsheet obsessed, and immune to Emmy's wounded smile because she had once been cut from a committee after asking where the fundraiser money went. She did not know she had just become the first real member of a campaign that was not built from my fear of being alone. Emmy's campaign launched the next day with pastel posters, heart-shaped stickers, and the slogan she had stolen from my first life because I had already suggested it before Rebirth: lead with heart, listen with courage. Seeing it again made me feel like the floor had tilted. I had not withdrawn every old idea fast enough. Emmy had written it down from our planning session and claimed it before I could. My first instinct was to confront her. My second, better instinct was to let her keep it. A slogan can be stolen. A campaign cannot survive on a slogan if the person beneath it cannot answer questions without borrowing your spine. Emmy's posters were beautiful. Mine were plain white with black text and QR codes linking to specific proposals. Students joked that my posters looked like legal notices. Rena said legal notices had won more wars than stickers. I clung to that. The first debate was Friday in the cafeteria, not the big forum. A smaller candidate roundtable streamed on the school page, moderated by the journalism club. Emmy arrived with a group of girls wearing her heart stickers. I arrived with Rena, 2 borrowed clipboards, and a stomach full of lightning. The moderator asked what each candidate would change first. Emmy gave the answer I had written in my first life notes. I want every student to feel heard, not just the loudest voices in the room. It was a good line.
Mine.
I felt it hit the room. Students nodded. Teachers smiled. Then the moderator asked, how specifically would you collect feedback from students who do not already engage with council? Emmy's smile flickered. In the first life, I had written the follow-up to rotating advisory circles, anonymous forum summaries, weekly corridor stations, and public response logs. This time, she did not have it. I think, she began, it starts with culture. People speak when they feel safe. So I would create that safe culture by being approachable.
Pretty.
Empty. The moderator waited. Any system for that? Emmy laughed softly. I don't want to overcomplicate student voice with bureaucracy. A few people chuckled. Then I answered. Approachability helps, but it still makes students come to the leader. I'd reverse the direction. Short, anonymous weekly forms, public summary of top 3 issues, and 1 council member assigned to respond with what is possible, what is not, and why. Students stop speaking when feedback disappears into a black hole. The cafeteria went quieter than applause. Quiet can be better. Quiet means people are thinking. Afterward, Emmy found me near the vending machines. You made me look unprepared, she said.
No tears.
No audience. Just the truth beneath the ribbon. I answered the question. You knew I was going to talk about student voice. Everyone was going to talk about student voice. Her eyes narrowed. You're enjoying this. No, I was not exactly. I was terrified, grieving, furious, alive. Enjoyment was too simple. I'm running. Emmy stepped closer. You know people don't like being lectured by spreadsheets, right? You need me more than you think. It should have hurt. It did hurt. But hurt was no longer an instruction. Maybe, I said. But I'd rather lose as myself than win as your ghostwriter. Her face went blank. I had said too much, a sentence from another life slipping through. Before she could ask, Rena appeared beside me holding 2 chocolate milks and said, Sophia has a meeting with people who understand bullet points. Emmy smiled at her like she was memorizing an enemy. Of course, she said. Good luck with the vampire campaign. The second week turned the election ugly. Not officially. Officially, everyone was positive and excited about student leadership. Unofficially, Emmy supporters began asking why I was suddenly ambitious.
Suddenly.
As if ambition only became acceptable when attached to Emmy's smile. Someone posted an anonymous poll. Would Sophia be too intense as president? The options were yes, absolutely, and who hurt her? I screenshotted it but did not respond. Rena wanted to destroy them with public policy language, which I appreciated but declined. Then came the first private message from an unknown account. Careful. People don't vote for girls who think they're smarter than everyone. In my first life, I would have cried and hidden. This time, I saved it in a folder labeled weather because calling it threats made my hands shake. The second message came the next day. Ask Emmy what she knows about your diary. My blood turned cold. The journal was not in my bedroom anymore. The morning after rebirth, I had taken it to school and locked it in Ms. Kerr's office under the excuse that it contained old campaign notes I did not want lost. Ms. Kerr, who had once been a debate coach and understood teenage politics better than most diplomats, sealed it in an envelope with my name and the date. "You're very serious about paperwork," she said. "I'm trying to become serious early."
She did not ask what that meant.
Good teachers know when a student is handing them fear in a folder. Because of that, the unknown message did not mean Emmy had the journal. It meant she had looked for it. Maybe at my house after I left for the bathroom that morning. Maybe in my bag. Maybe she only suspected. Either way, she had gone searching for a weapon she remembered only as access. I forwarded the message to Ms. Kerr and my mother. My mother called immediately. "Do I need to ban Emmy from the house?" "Yes," I said. The word hurt. It also felt like breathing. Emmy confronted me after school under the jacaranda trees near the front gate, where purple flowers stuck to wet pavement like bruises. "Your mom texted my mom," she said. "She said I'm not allowed over until after elections." That's right. Her eyes filled. This time, I think the tears were real. That made them harder. "Sophia, we've been best friends for 5 years." "I know. And you're treating me like some criminal because we're competing?" I looked at her, at the girl who had slept beside me through storms, who knew my favorite noodles, who once spent 3 hours making me a birthday card when my father forgot to call. The grief rose so hard, I almost bent under it. "Have you looked for my journal?" I asked. She recoiled. "What?" "Answer." "I cannot believe you." "That isn't an answer." The tears spilled. "You've become so cold." There it was, the oldest punishment for a girl with boundaries.
Cold.
As if warmth meant leaving doors unlocked for people holding matches. "Maybe," I said. "But have you looked?" She wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, suddenly furious.
Fine.
"Run your little campaign. See who stands beside you when they realize what you're really like." She walked away before I could answer. I stood under the trees until Rena found me and gently removed a wet flower from my hair. The Candidates Policy Expo changed everything. Each candidate had to set up a booth in the courtyard and answer student questions for one lunch period. Emmy's booth had fairy lights, candy jars, and a photo wall titled "The Heart of Our Year." Mine had printed budgets, sample feedback forms, a formal spending tracker, and a sign that said "Ask me hard questions." Rena said that sign was either brilliant or self-harm. It turned out to be both. Students came to test me. Some asked genuine questions about study rooms. Some asked whether I hated fun. One boy asked if I would ban senior pranks because I gave that energy. I said, I would ban boring pranks. He laughed despite himself. A group of juniors asked why seniors should care about a president who graduated soon. I explained that Year 12 sets systems younger students inherit. That answer traveled. By the end of lunch, my booth had fewer stickers but more conversations. Emmy watched from across the courtyard, smile fixed, candy untouched. Then someone asked her about formal budgeting. Not me. Not Rena. A student named Jace, whose sister had been overcharged for last year's formal and never refunded. "You said you'd make events more inclusive," he said, holding a phone with last year's complaints open. "Would you publish formal spending before ticket prices are set?" Emmy gave a beautiful answer about affordability, community, and working with teachers. Jace repeated, "Would you publish the spending?" Emmy's smile thinned. "Some details might be confidential." "Why?" "Because vendor agreements can be complicated." That was a phrase I had taught her during old campaign prep, but she used it in the wrong place. Vendor agreements are not state secrets. Rena, who had drifted near like a shark with a clipboard, raised her eyebrows so high they became punctuation. Jace came to my booth next. "Would you publish it?" "Yes," I said. With private contact details removed. Estimated budget before ticket pricing, actual spending after the event, and a reason if something changes. Jace nodded once. That night, a post appeared. "Emmy has heart. Sophia has receipts. It was meant as a joke. It became a campaign shift. Emmy stopped being sad after that. She became wounded and dangerous. The smear arrived 2 days before voting day. An anonymous account posted screenshots of old messages between us, cropped so I looked controlling. Sophia, don't say that in the speech. Sophia, stick to the answer I wrote. Sophia, you need to stop promising things you can't explain. The caption said, is this leadership or manipulation? Poor Emmy. In context, the messages were from first lifestyle prep before I decided to run, when Emmy had asked me to help with her nomination speech, and I told her not to promise a free formal because council had no authority to fund it. But cropped, they looked ugly.
Familiar.
My stomach dropped through the floor. It was not the journal page. It was a different weapon, one she could access without breaking into my house. One built from the truth bent at the joints. The old terror returned so fast, I nearly vomited. I saw the auditorium, heard Emmy reading my words, felt the whole grade turning. For 10 minutes, I sat on the bathroom floor shaking, phone buzzing nonstop. Then my phone lit up with Rena's name. I answered and she said, "Do not post angry." I laughed once, broken. "Hello to you too." "I mean it. Do not defend yourself in the emotional language of the accusation. We use documents."
We.
Obviously we. I have the full chat exports because you sent them to Ms. Kerr last week like a paranoid genius. Meet me in the library. I washed my face and went. In the library, Rena, Jace, and 2 journalism club students were already there. That was the first moment I understood I was not alone in the same way anymore. People had not just started liking my platform. They had started trusting my process. We posted the full context within the hour. Not with insults. Not with tears. A thread titled, "Full Context for the Cropped Campaign Screenshots." Each cropped line appeared beside the surrounding messages. Don't say that in the speech became don't say, I'll guarantee free formal tickets because student council cannot promise that without budget approval. Stick to the answer I wrote became you asked me to draft an answer about study spaces. Stick to it if that is still your view, but don't use it if you don't agree. You need to stop promising things you can't explain became the end of a long argument where I told Emmy voters deserved clear plans, not pretty phrases. Rena added a final line with my approval. I have helped friends prepare before. I will not apologize for giving honest feedback. But I am no longer managing anyone else's campaign. I am running my own. The post spread faster than the smear. Not because everyone loved me. Because the full context made the smear look lazy. Emmy called me 12 times that night. I did not answer. At 11:18 p.m., she texted, "You're making me look evil." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I replied, "I'm making the full conversation visible." She typed for 3 minutes. The next message came, "You were supposed to be my best friend." There it was. The sentence that had ruled my life longer than any slogan.
Supposed to be. Supposed to help.
Supposed to stay behind. Supposed to keep quiet when hurt because friendship meant absorbing the ugly parts and presenting the pretty ones to the world. I typed, then deleted, then typed again. That didn't mean I was supposed to disappear. She did not reply. The final candidate forum was the next morning. The same auditorium. The same stage. The same 15 minutes before voting opened. In my first life, that room became my trial. In this one, walking into it felt like stepping into my own ghost. My hands were cold. My mouth tasted like metal. The candidates sat in chairs under the stage lights while the whole senior grade filled the rows. Emmy sat 2 seats away, face pale, hair perfect, eyes swollen enough to suggest crying without ruining makeup. Ms. Kerr moderated. She looked at me once before beginning, and in that look I saw the sealed journal envelope in her office, the message screenshots, the full context thread, the quiet warning of an adult who knew the knife might still be coming. "Final question," she said near the end. "Leadership often tests friendships. How would you handle disagreement with someone close to you while still serving the wider student body?" The room held its breath. Everyone knew it was about us, even if Ms. Kerr had written it professionally enough to survive parent emails. Emmy rose first. Of course she did. She stepped to the microphone slowly, as if carrying a wound. I believe leadership means choosing kindness even when you are hurt, she said. Her voice trembled. This election has been painful for me. I never imagined competing against someone I loved like a sister. But I have learned that sometimes people close to us may want control, and we have to lead with grace instead of anger. A murmur moved through the room. It was not as strong as the first life, but it was there. She continued, I will never expose private details or attack someone personally. That is not who I am. My breath stopped. There it was. The setup. In my first life, the journal page followed that sentence. This time, her pocket was empty. Her eyes flicked toward Miss Kerr, then toward me. She had no page, no stolen journal, no private weapon. So she did something desperate. But I will say this. If your leadership only works from behind someone else, maybe you should ask whether it is leadership at all. That line landed. It was good. Cruel, but good. Emmy knew how to wound in ways applause could hide. Then it was my turn. I stood, legs shaking under my skirt, and walked to the microphone. For 1 second, the auditorium overlapped with the first life, so completely I saw the cue cards falling from my lap. I gripped the stand. I agree that leadership tests friendships, I said. My voice sounded too quiet. I breathed and tried again. I also think friendship can become a place where one person is expected to do the work and another person is expected to be loved for it. The room stilled. Emmy's face tightened. I continued, not looking at her now, looking at the rows of students who had watched US turn from best friends into symbols. I have spent years helping from behind the scenes. Sometimes I did that because I cared. Sometimes because I was scared people would not want me in the room unless I was useful. Running for president taught me something I should have learned earlier. Support is not the same as silence, and friendship is not proof that someone deserves your labor, your privacy, or your voice. The auditorium was so quiet I could hear the microphone hum. I did not mention the journal. I did not mention the smear. I did not need to. If I disagree with someone close to me, I will not pretend it does not hurt. It does. But as president, my job would not be to protect one friendship's image. It would be to protect fair systems, clear budgets, public answers, shared credit, a council that works even when the popular person in the room is not the most prepared person in the room. A few students clapped before I finished, then stopped awkwardly because it was not applause time. I smiled despite myself. So my answer is, I would handle disagreement by making the process clear enough that trust does not depend on who cries better. That was too sharp. I knew it the second I said it. The room reacted like someone had dropped a glass. Emmy went white. Ms. Kerr's mouth twitched and then immediately became professional. Somewhere in the back, Rena whispered something that sounded like fatality. Voting opened immediately after the forum. Students lined up outside the library computer lab, still buzzing. Emmy stood near the courtyard with her supporters, receiving hugs like someone awaiting surgery. I sat on a bench with Rena and watched people walk in.
No chasing.
No last-minute begging.
No whisper campaigns.
My campaign was done. For the first time in either life, the outcome did not feel like the only measure of survival. Then Emmy approached alone. Rena stiffened. I shook my head once, and she moved just far enough to pretend privacy, while absolutely listening. Emmy stopped in front of me. Her eyes were red, but dry. You hate me, she said. Not a question. No, her face twisted. Don't lie. I don't hate you. I just don't trust you. She flinched. That's worse. Maybe it was. Did you post the crop screenshots? I asked. She looked away. That was answer enough. Did you look for my journal? Her jaw tightened. You always wrote everything down. You made me feel like every mistake I made was being recorded. So, you wanted to find my private thoughts before I could use them? I wanted to know what you really thought of me. Her voice cracked. You were my best friend, and then overnight you became this opponent. There it was, the part she could not see around. To Emmy, the betrayal began when I stopped being useful. To me, it began when I realized usefulness was the condition. I did think ugly things sometimes, I said quietly. I was tired. I was jealous. I was proud of my work and hurt that nobody saw it. That doesn't mean you had the right to take those thoughts and make them public. She looked at me sharply, and I saw the question in her eyes. How did you know? In this life, she had not read the page. But some truths cast shadows before they happen. I never did that, she said, too softly.
No, y replía.
Not this time. The words hung between us like a door opened onto a room she could not enter. She stepped back. You're scaring me. Good, I said, then regretted it because I did not want to become someone who enjoyed fear. Softer, I added, maybe we both needed to be scared of what this friendship could become. Voting closed at 2 p.m. Results were announced at the end of day assembly. I sat in the second row with my hands clasped so tightly my fingers hurt. Emmy sat across the aisle, surrounded by girls who kept whispering encouragement. Ms. Kerr walked to the podium with an envelope. Very dramatic for a student election, but schools love envelopes because they make ordinary power look ceremonial. This was a close election, she said. My stomach dropped. Close meant possible heartbreak. Close meant every hallway conversation mattered. Close meant half the room might hate the result. I want to thank all candidates for participating in a process that challenged our year to think seriously about leadership, transparency, and respect. Rena muttered, "Open the envelope before I age." I almost laughed, which helped. Ms. Kerr opened it. Your Year 12 class president is Sophia Reyes. For 1 second, the room did not react. The story had missed its old ending and had not yet found the new one. Then Rena screamed. Not clapped. Screamed like I had been elected president of a small nation under siege. The room burst open. Applause, whistles, some groans, some shocked laughter. Jace stood and clapped over his head. The journalism club cheered. A group of juniors, who could not even vote but had apparently adopted the budget transparency platform as entertainment, started chanting receipts. I stood because Rena shoved me upward. My legs felt disconnected from the floor. As I walked to the stage, I passed Emmy. She was clapping.
Slowly.
Her face was pale, unreadable, and for once completely unperformed.
I do not know what she felt then.
Rage, grief, humiliation, maybe all of it. I only know she did not cry. That mattered to me for reasons I still cannot explain. Ms. Kerr handed me the president badge. It was heavier than I expected, a small enamel thing with more symbolic weight than practical use. She leaned in and whispered, "Now do the work." That was the best congratulations anyone gave me. At the microphone, I looked out at the grade. In my first life, I had sat below this stage while Emmy turned my private pain into public proof against me. In this one, I stood above the same seats with no stolen page, no cue cards, no hidden writer. Thank you, I said, and my voice shook because I was alive and shaking as aloud. I know not everyone voted for me. That's fine. My job is not to only represent people who agreed with me. My first action will be publishing a student council response tracker and formal budget template before our first meeting next week. If you have issues you want raised, the form opens tonight. If I can't fix something, I'll tell you why. If I make a mistake, I'll correct it publicly. And if you helped with this campaign, Rena, Jace, the journalism team, everyone who asked hard questions, your work will be credited. I stopped there. No grand speech.
No stolen eslogan.
The applause came again, steadier this time. Emmy resigned from the formal committee 2 days later. She said she needed space after a difficult election. Some people blamed me. Some blamed her. Most moved on faster than either of us expected because school scandals burn hot and then become background noise for exams. That is another thing I learned. The moment that feels like the whole world to you is often just Tuesday to everyone else. I began the work. It was unglamorous immediately. The feedback form filled with actual issues, joke submissions, one marriage proposal to Rena's spreadsheet, and 17 complaints about the cafeteria chicken. We published summaries. We met with teachers. We argued about whether study room bookings should be first come, first served or priority based during exam weeks. Leadership, real leadership, was less like standing on stage and more like answering emails from people who began with not to be annoying and then were extremely annoying. I loved it. Not every second, but enough. Because the work had my name on it, and when people thanked me, I did not have to translate the praise through someone else's smile. Emmy and I did not become friends again. Not in the way people wanted. Teachers love reconciliation narratives because they make conflict feel educational instead of damaging. A few classmates asked whether we would make up now that the election was over, as if the presidency had been a game and not a mirror held to 5 years of imbalance. We spoke once before graduation, in the empty art corridor where old campaign posters waited to be recycled. She was peeling one of her heart stickers off the wall. It tore in half. "I'm sorry about the screenshots," she said without looking at me. My chest tightened. It was the first direct apology she had given. "Thank you." She picked at the torn sticker. "I didn't think of it as lying. I thought you were finally showing everyone the version of me you'd been hiding, so I showed them the version of you I thought you were hiding." It was not a clean apology. Real ones rarely are.
"You were wrong," I said.
"I know." Her voice cracked slightly. "I think I was scared you'd be better without me." I looked at her then, and for a second I saw the year 7 girl on the music room steps, terrified no one would choose her first. Maybe that fear had grown inside both of us, twisting in different directions. "I was scared of that too," I admitted. She laughed softly, painfully. "Guess we found out." I did not say yes. I did not say no. Some truths do not need a final stamp. Graduation arrived after exams, after council meetings, after the formal budget was published, and half the year discovered how expensive fairy lights were. My mother came early to get a good seat. She had watched the election from the edges, never fully understanding why my hand shook when Emmy's name appeared on my phone, but trusting me enough to stop asking for details I was not ready to give. Ms. Kerr presented the Student Leadership Awards. When my name was called for service to the senior year, the applause was warm. Not landslide applause. Not pity applause. Work applause. I accepted the certificate and looked toward the row where Emmy sat. She clapped. This time not slowly, not loudly, just honestly enough. Maybe that was the only ending our friendship could earn. After the ceremony, I went to the senior mural. The old slogan from the first life was not there. In this life, the mural committee had chosen a line from the feedback tracker introduction Rena, and I wrote, "No one should need to be popular to be heard." It was painted in deep blue across the wall, surrounded by signatures, inside jokes, and terrible drawings of graduation caps. I touched the paint lightly. My slogan now. Our slogan, actually, because Rena had argued over every word. I thought of the other mural, the one from the first life, glowing under the rain while headlights came toward me. I thought of the journal page that never got written, the campaign that never erased me, the best friend who became my enemy because I stopped being a shadow. I wished I could tell the dead girl that she was not wrong to want leadership. She was only wrong to believe the only safe way to want it was through someone else. On the night before university orientation, I opened a new journal. For months, I had been afraid of blank pages because the old journal almost became a weapon before it was even written. But fear of being exposed had stolen enough for me. I wrote the date. Then I wrote, I won. I lost Emmy. I lost the version of myself that thought those were opposites. I stopped there, read the line, and did not tear it out. Private thoughts are allowed to be unfinished, unflattering, unready for public consumption. That is what makes them private. I placed the journal in my desk drawer, then locked the drawer. Not because I expected everyone to steal from me, because trust and locks can coexist. At university, during student society sign-ups, a girl with a bright smile asked if I wanted to help with a campaign for first-year representative. "You look organized," she said. I almost laughed. That sentence had once been a door into disappearance. "I am," I said. "But if I help, credit is shared and decisions are documented." She blinked, then grinned. "Honestly? Hot." I laughed for real. Maybe I would help. Maybe I would run. Maybe I would do both, openly. The difference was that I no longer treated my own ambition like a shameful thing best hidden behind someone more lovable. When roll call reached my name in my first tutorial, I answered clearly. Sophia Reyes. Present. Not campaign manager to someone else's destiny. Not the jealous girl from a stolen page. Not the shadow behind a heart-shaped slogan. Present, with my own badge packed away in a drawer, my own voice steadier than it used to be, and the hard-earned knowledge that the person who calls you selfish for stepping into the light was never protecting your friendship. She was protecting the shadow, where she needed you to stay.